is the go flag sprinting towards Christmas 3 weeks later. Easter doesn't have that. I mean, it should have that clearly with the season of Lent. But we get just in our own lives, and Easter has become less important than Christmas. But historically, interestingly, it used to be the other way around. That Easter was far more significant than Christmas was. For obvious reasons. Great that the Lord is born, but the resurrection story is really the very heart of Christianity, and not just the resurrection story, but all the things where Jesus models, like, this is how to go through life. This is how to go through life. And we can't lose track of that because, as I often say, Christianity, well-known historical fact, was not known originally as Christianity. It was known as the way because it was about walking. It was about how do you actually do this? What does it actually look like? And I think about St. Francis's beautiful words, preach the word every day, and if need be, use words. I think that really is the essence of the Christian message. Like, this is a way to walk, and we're to walk in this way. As I said on Sunday, it's a map, not a ticket. And it's a map of how to live life. It's not a ticket to get into heaven. I think that's really important. And it's also really important, friends, I'm going to touch on this a number of different ways today. Really important to remember that when we look at God's love, it's important, yet it is a feeling, and we can feel that love on occasion. And yet it's more than that. It's much more of a force. And that's difference, right? We live in a culture where sort of love as a feeling gets totally worshipped, put on a pedestal. Like, isn't it great to feel in love? I mean, even that phrase. But love has a force to it. And for those of you who've seen, a friend or a parent or a colleague take care of a loved one who's very ill, maybe coming to the end of life, you can see that force. It's no longer just a feeling. And if that force was not there, if the actions weren't there, it'd be hard to actually call it love, but we can call it love because we see the force, because we see love in action. Now I want to read for you a passage here. It's a beautiful passage, and this is Jesus talking about right during Easter week. It's a beautiful passage from John 12. Then Jesus cried out, "When a man believes in me, he does not believe in me only, but in the one who sent me. When he looks at me, he sees the one who sent me." So like literally looking at Jesus is looking at God. And that's such a beautiful, beautiful idea. Again, God, as Rachel Naomi Remen said, it's God with skin on. This is what God looks like. You want to know how God looks in the world? You want to know how God acts in the world? Look at how Jesus did his life. I have come into the world as a light so that no one who believes in me should stay in darkness. Beautiful. And when we believing in God, it's believing in that way, believing in that very way of life. It's not just an intellectual thing sitting way up here, which is nice, terrific, but so what? It's about this living. As for the person who hears my words but does not keep them, I do not judge him. Beautiful line there. For I did not come to judge the world, but to save it. Again, Jesus coming to save, not to judge. That's beautiful. There is a judge for the one who rejects me and does not accept my words. That very word which I spoke will condemn him at the last day. Now, how would you hold that? Like, here's Jesus saying, well, I don't judge, I don't condemn. And here he's saying, yeah, but there's one who does. And he's saying, kind of, I am, when you see me, you see God. The Father and I are one, famous saying. Well, I think there it's really talking about self-condemning. That if we don't live a life that's filled with grace and joy and service and kindness, if we don't live a life like that, we're going to get to the end of life. We're going to get to the last day, so to speak, and it's going to be like, wow, I missed it. I had this life, I had this opportunity, and I missed it. I missed it. And so much of life is not missing it, like really getting clear, oh, this is what it's all about. And the beautiful part of that, friends, is we can make that decision today. If you're 20 years old watching this, you can make that decision today that I'm really going to live life the way that we know life is supposed to be lived. If you're 80, it's not too late. You can still choose. I'm going to live life today the way that life was supposed to be lived, because you don't want to get to the end of the journey and just think, I missed it. I had all these opportunities. I had all these opportunities to serve. I didn't take them, ... And again, one of the greatest movies of all time, It's a Wonderful Life, shows a man kind of going through that. And A Christmas Carol with Scrooge shows a man going through those kind of machinations, like, I don't want to miss. And so they get a chance to go back and then to live life fully. And that's the trick. It's like, pick heaven now. Pick it now. Pick it now. Choose to do it. In the Easter story, as we wind through this, it's just filled with so many beautiful stories about what that way looks like. What is the way with a capital W, and how do we live it? And you want to see Sunday sermon, which courtesy of the sermon writing team, which is such a huge help. You know, they put together, help me like put together something. I didn't really put together, they did, but they really put something together that's really worthwhile to take a look at, because it's about this idea of Jesus washing feet. Like, this story goes right into Jesus washing feet. Now remember, Jesus washes these feet right after this story. Those of you not familiar with it, you can watch Sunday service. You can look back at Sunday service to take a look. Does this act of deep grace, this act of deep servanthood, where he's washing his 12 disciples' feet and saying, this is how you got to live. Got to live like a servant, because that's what servants did. And he also included washing Judas's feet, who's the betrayer, Peter's feet, who was the denier, Thomas's feet, who was the doubter. And it's not that as he's washing their feet, he's like, doing that. Not at all, because Jesus is here to save, not condemn. He's here to save and heal. That's what it's all about. And we find that salvation and we find that healing when we walk in the way. That simple and that difficult. So anyways, as we start this Easter week, let's have a day just like living in the way. And you know it. You know, Jesus said, you know the way. And you do. And you do. May you live it today, my dear friends. So with that, let's shift gears here. What we're going to do is we're going to do a little meditation, a little prayer, a little blessing, and then we'll say hi to friends on Facebook. So with that, dear friends, let's get a little breath and a little meditation. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I. Be still and know. Be still and. Be still. Be. Our Father, who art in the heavens, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so upon the earth. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you, bring you peace, and bring you home. Amen. All right, dear friends, let's give a cheery hello to anyone who might have been able to join us this morning. And it was a really nice weekend. I hope you had a really nice weekend as well. Linda, thank you for the beautiful reminder. Well, thank you for saying thank you, Linda. It's like it's an old saying, repeat it way too much, but the one of the most beautiful lines around sermons is when we hear a sermon. The best sermons are when we hear what we already know, but we hear it again for the first time. I love that idea. I find that very, very, very true. All right, let's flip on to this and see who we got here. All right, Marcus, good morning, buddy, and Rita, good morning to you. All right, dear friends, listen, God bless. Have a wonderful day, and